Nothing but pools behind you.
No.
Hold
on 1 second.
Are you in or no?
Yeah, well, I'm supposed to be live, but it's not connected to Resilient Realtor again. I don't want to end it. Okay, now.
Right there.
All right, now it says we're connected to Resilient Realtor. I just don't know if it's live. Do you see it on? Are we live on? Okay.
Wait.
All right. Yeah, it's a few second lag, but I hope we're good. All right, I see a couple people jumping on and viewing this now. I apologize, everyone. We are several minutes late, having a little bit of technical issues with getting the right Resilient Realtor Facebook group to connect to my StreamYard account, but we got it all squared away now. So thank you very much for attending and watching. Today's class is about becoming a market expert, and more specifically on how to present, maybe consider doing a show or a statistical report that you can issue to your clients or to your sphere, about the market. If you don't follow me on Facebook or YouTube or a few other places, I do a regular show. I call it Merrill's Monday Market Madness. It used to be called Merrill's Monday Morning Market Madness, but then I started not getting it done by morning. So we just took out the morning, and now it's Merrill's Monday Market Madness. And it's very boring, but it fits my personality, which is where I talk about what is happening in the market. And I thought that it was, well, we get a lot of questions. We just get a lot of agents asking us questions about how I do it and where we get the data and how we're so confident in talking about the market. So we're doing this class today, and I'm going to talk to you about kind of how I do my show. We're going to get really specific and like what tools do I use and how do I track it, and what information do I present. But keep in mind that I don't necessarily, you can do the exact same thing as me if you want, but I think it's important to make it your own and present it in a way that's authentic to you. I'm kind of an analytical and kind of maybe some of my way of presenting it is dry. I don't know. And so you might decide that you want to present different types of information. Maybe you don't like the type of information I share, but you still want to put something together. My hope is that at the end of this training today, you'll walk away with not only a better understanding of how to kind of aggregate the data, but hopefully with a higher level of confidence in saying, okay, I now know what I want to do, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start doing it. I have actually gotten quite a bit of business from my show, but I do want to say that it took a long time. I was doing the show for over a year before I got anyone to like call me up and say, hey, we're thinking about selling our house. Now I, fairly regularly get people who say, hey, we watch your show and we love it. And more importantly, I notice it even more if I don't do the show. If I don't do it, we get like multiple people reaching out saying, hey, we haven't seen your show in a while, and we were really hoping to get an update on the market. Especially right now, I don't know of the people who are watching, maybe put in the comments what market you're from. But I think it's pretty much a national thing. The market is shifting really fast right now in Phoenix. And based on my conversations with other agents, I think it's shifting pretty fast, pretty much nationally. But I know there's some markets that are still doing really, really well. Yeah, go ahead and put in the comments if you're able to, especially if you're watching on Facebook, where you're from and what is the market doing in your area right now? Are you seeing a slowdown, or is it still hot as ever? Because here in the Phoenix market, we're definitely seeing a pretty big slowdown. I wouldn't say we're shifting to a buyer's market, not yet anyway, but inventory is climbing fast. The homes are being listed at a much faster rate right now than they're selling. And so inventory is climbing, and it's climbing fast. It's basically doubled. The total number of homes available for sale has doubled in about the past 6 to 8 weeks. And let's see, we do have a comment here. Janice Allen from Michigan. They're seeing a little bit of a slowdown, but it looks like homes are still going over asking, and you're only getting a few offers instead of 20 offers. So thank you for sharing that. So I am going to share my screen with you all real quick because I've got a little slide deck to go over with you. So let me see here. Share my screen. Over here. All right. Can everyone see this okay? If you're watching online, Christy, is that coming across the way it should be?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Today we'll be talking about how to become a market expert, understanding the data and reports, and how to kind of break it down and explain it to the public in a way that, I sometimes we have the tendency to just kind of spout this data without helping the people, the clients or customers or consumers understand what it means to them. So I do think that's an important, like I really try to say, okay, so yeah, inventory is climbing, but what does that mean? Why do you care the inventory is climbing? Well, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, this is what that could mean for you. Of course, hopefully if you've been on any resilient realtor trainings before, my name is Merrill Jencks, and of course I'm sure you all know my wife Christy Jencks already, and then this is our wonderful family and our 7 kids. And if you are not, I'm assuming most of you are, because I think you're watching it through the Resilient Realtor Facebook group. But if you're not already, please request to join the Facebook group. We try to share a lot of valuable content in there. Also, if you happen to know anybody we're always looking to grow our team. So if you know anyone who could benefit from being on a high producing real estate team, or who could benefit from being mentored by agents like myself and Christy, joinbighelper.com is a great website to send people to learn more about our team. The resources for the training that we do either today or on any of our other Resilient Realtor trainings can be found at bit.ly/Resilient Realtor. And I'm going to go ahead and dive in now. So first of all, what are the tools that you're going to need to be able to put together a nice market report? And I apologize. I know we have a couple of agents not from Phoenix here today, but your MLS, honestly, you should be able to get, I put Armless, which is the Arizona regional MLS. Your MLS, you should be able to really aggregate a really nice amount of data and information purely from searching in your MLS. I know there's a lot of services and reports that you can sign up for. Like, for example, Keeping Current Matters, which is a really great tool that gives amazing market information. The downside is it's not hyper local. Maybe you specialize in a specific neighborhood and you want to be able to share information about what the market is doing in that specific neighborhood. So these reports that are national are not hyper local, and you want to be the hyper local expert. But also, I don't love sharing data that I don't understand how the number was arrived to. Honestly, I've never really had somebody say to me, well, where did you get that information? They tend to trust you, but I want to know how was that information compounded. So in the Phoenix area, there is a very amazing company called the Cromford Report, and they put out just an amazing report that you can read about all sorts of, not just one report. They have like 100 different reports that you can look at regarding market indices and homes by price range and all this stuff. But I find that I learn it much better and internalize it much better, and I'm able to share it much better when I aggregated the data myself, and I know how I arrived at that number, and I can trust it. It's kind of one of those things where, do you learn best by just listening to a teacher lecture? How well do you think you would learn how to drive a car purely in a classroom, right? Like, imagine if you didn't ever get to get behind the wheel until the time of your driving test, right? All you get is classroom education, and they're just going to teach you about how to turn on your blinker and how to brake and how to gas and how to do all these things, but you're not allowed to actually do it until you're certified with your license, right? Like, Most people learn better getting their hands dirty and getting their hands in there. So I'm a big fan of aggregating the data ourselves. And then I use, again, in the Phoenix area, our MLS publishes a monthly newsletter called the Stat Newsletter. And I do use that pretty religiously. But the downside to that Stat newsletter is that it comes out about 3 weeks. So like they publish a monthly report, and that monthly report comes out about 3 weeks after that month ended. So we literally just got the report for April 12 days ago, right? And the market has changed so much in the past 3 weeks that the data in that newsletter a little out of date compared to what we're feeling in the market today. I'm a big fan of Google Sheets. You obviously can use Excel, Microsoft Excel as well. But what's really great about Google Sheets is that you have it right there in your Google Drive, and you can always access it and adjust it, and collaborate with other people and share it. So most of when I'm sharing specific data that I need to put into a spreadsheet and be able to compare different markets and that kind of thing, I usually put it into a Google Sheet. And I'm going to show you an example of a Google Sheet that we've built in a minute. I think that probably the best medium to present your market reports, once you figured out exactly what you're going to share and what your numbers are and what you want your show to look like, how often are you going to do the show? I used to try to do it every single Monday and kind of decided that was a little bit overkill. Now I like to do it every other week. So decide how often you're going to do it, what you're going to share. I really, really like Facebook Live as the medium to present it in. Now, some people don't love doing Facebook Lives because what if they mess up, right? And you can't go back and re-record it and change it. But here's the way I look at it. If you were having a live conversation with somebody and they were like, well, how's the market? You don't get to record that and like, oh, I messed up, start over. That's not how the real world works. Sometimes you're going to stutter in real life talking, right? Sometimes you're going to be like, so there was you're going to hesitate. And I think that's okay. In fact, I think it comes across as more authentic. And so if you try to record like a professional video with a videographer, there's several big problems with doing it that way. Number one, you're going to be too much of a perfectionist and try to re-record it 800 times, and it's going to take too much time and it's going to burn you out and you're never going to want to do it again. Okay. Number two, the video editing process takes too long. Okay. If you're going to do this show once a week or every other week or once a month, let's say you shared what you shared in a market report today, and the videographer takes a week to edit that video before you get it back and you publish it, that some of that data is going to be really out of date now, and I like to be able to share it right away when it's, totally up to date. Now, we do use a product called StreamYard. And that's not free. That's the only thing on here that I'm recommending that isn't free. Well, I guess the MLS isn't free, but you have that anyway. StreamYard is about $39 a month, and the advantage to StreamYard, and they're not the only one. There's several other services that offer something similar for a similar price. We use StreamYard. It's about $40 a month, and it allows you to do a live broadcast across multiple platforms at the same time. So for example, right now we're broadcasting this on Facebook on a couple different pages and also on YouTube. And I really love having it on YouTube because then we take that YouTube link and we email it out to our database. So that, I think that the downside to just doing a Facebook Live is that's a harder thing to share after the fact. Oftentimes I'll be in people will ask me, how's the market? And I was like, you know what? I actually just recorded this video 2 hours ago, and it's super relevant. I think you would find it really helpful. And I actually just send them the link to the YouTube video. So it's really beneficial to have it on YouTube. You can just do a YouTube Live as well, but we get less like live views on YouTube than we do on Facebook. So there is a benefit to having it in both places. You could also just use two phones, right? One phone is recording you Facebook Live and one's recording you on YouTube Live. And Christy has a suggestion.
So we're also putting it on our website, on Google Business, and we're uploading the video directly to Instagram. So it's going across all platforms and it's getting emailed out.
Okay, perfect. So Christy mentioned that, and I think I had, some information about that here a little bit later, but we do take the video afterwards and repurpose it in a lot of different ways. We post it on our Google, the Monday Morning Market Madness video that I do. We post it on our Google My Business page. We take maybe a shortened version, or does the whole version go on Instagram? Whole thing goes on Instagram. You can tell how much of this I do. And it gets, but point is, it gets repurposed. We honestly, we got the idea from Tom Ferry, right? He has this, monthly show, the Tom Ferry Show, right? And it gets turned into a podcast, and it gets turned into a blog, and it gets turned into, all these different things, and the same content, quote cards, and all this content gets repurposed. So he only has to shoot one thing for 15 minutes, and all of a sudden it's used to get thousands of views across tons of platforms. Honestly, I think it would be awesome if someone took their market update and turned it into a podcast. I haven't taken the time to figure that layer out, but I think that would be another awesome medium that would be worth giving a try. And then how relevant does it make you seem when you're like, oh, check out my podcast? I kind of like that idea. I think we need to figure out how to turn it into a podcast. That's it. We're doing it.
You have a podcast voice.
Yes, I have a great face for radio. Thank you, Christy.
Not say
that. Okay, so let's talk about your preparation. So number one, you really need to know the market yourself. Honestly, I'm kind of, how can I say this delicately? Disgusted.
That is not delicate.
At how many agents know so little about the market. Now, I know I'm a bit of a stat rat, and maybe I'm too much of a nerd, but I don't know, like, do a social experiment. Call some random agents on Zillow or out of the phone book or something like that, and just be like, how's the market? And I feel like all you're really going to get is, I mean, I don't know what they're going to say exactly, but it's still really hot, or it's, but they're not really going to be able to back it up. Trust me, when you're able to go to a client and they ask you, how's the market? And you're able to say, well, here's what's going on exactly right now. We have 10,000 active listings, and we have 10,000 pending listings. So our month supply of inventory is So the point is, we're really seeing a big slowdown because the total active inventory is really climbing. And there's, 10,403 listings on the market right now. And 2 months ago, there was only 4,000. Like, you're able to say stuff like that, and people are like, whoa, this person really knows the market. And I think that's really important. Now, one thing that I think that you ought to do is that, as part of your market study, you ought to choose a particular data set to track on a very regular basis. And I'm about to show you what I track. So I got to exit out of the screen show here for a second. I personally track every single day how many active listings there are, how many pending listings there are, how many listings have closed in the past 30 days, and the month supply of inventory number, which is literally just the active divided by the closed in the past 30 days number. And as you can see, I started putting it in. I've actually been doing this for several years. I started putting it into this spreadsheet in January of 2021, but you can scroll down all the way here, all the way to today. Okay, we've got the numbers as of this morning. Now, of course, it changes throughout the day, so the time of day can vary. But when I added these numbers this morning, there were 10,049 active listings in our MLS. There were 10,069 pending listings. There were 8,662 that have closed in the past 30 days, giving us a month supply of inventory number of 1.16.
Janice wants to know if that's for the entire MLS.
That is for our entire MLS. Yes.
Do you ever break down for?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I will do, especially when I'm getting ready to do a show, a market update show, sometimes I like to, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but sometimes I like to look at the numbers for a specific segment of the market or a city. Like, okay, I'm just looking at homes in this city or this county or this price range. And we're going to look at that a little bit later. But this just gives me an overall temperature of the market. See, I know right now there's 10,049 active listings, right? Go back to April 20th, there were 5,219, right? So I can see very easily, very dramatically, and very quickly how fast inventory is rising. And this is all built in a Google Sheet. The MSI number is calculated. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess the MSI number is entered manually. I thought I had that set up on a formula, but it would be extremely easy to create that on a formula. To be honest, I have a virtual assistant who actually enters these numbers. I look up the numbers every day and I post them in Slack, our team's Slack channel. And then she takes them and changes and puts them in here. Okay, so I have these two tables that you are very easy to build these tables out in Excel or a Google spreadsheet. You know, you just go into data or something like that, and or somewhere in here, insert table. I think that's where it is. Insert chart, right? And then you just say what your data fields are going to be, and poof, it spits out a chart for you really easily. I do want to zoom in on this a little bit so you can see these a little bit better. So this is the month supply of inventory number, and as you can see, right, we're climbing very fast, right? That's what the current month supply of inventory is doing in our market. Now, I do get sometimes people wonder, why are there all these spikes, right? What, it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Why isn't it more of a steady line? But that's because there's a weekly flow, right? That very few homes get listed on Sunday and Monday, right? And so the total inventory on Sunday and Mondays is usually going down. And the total number of pending listings goes way up on those days. But then on Thursdays and Fridays, almost nothing goes pending and everything is being added. New listings are coming on the market. So every single week, there's an ebb and flow to the market. So the spikes are less important to pay attention to. That's just your normal weekly flow. But the overall trend, obviously, is super important. Okay, and then I also add into the graph this blue line is how many active listings there are. Check this out. The active listing number today is going to cross, it probably already has crossed, how many pending listings there are. So I now know for the first time in years, we are going to have more active listings than pending listings. I also know that there's more active listings than there are listings that have closed in the past 30 days, which of course, is why we have a month supply of inventory of greater than one. Okay, so again, I could go on to some other report and they could provide me some of this data, but it's dated and I didn't personally aggregate it, which means I didn't drive the car, right? And if you didn't drive the car, you didn't really learn it as well. Now, I'm not saying that you need to look up these exact stats. You might decide that you don't care about the market as a whole. Maybe you specialize in 55 plus communities, right? And so why would you bother tracking the whole market? You would just track 55 plus communities, right? Or maybe maybe you think month supply of inventory is boring and you would rather track average sales prices. That's fine, but pick something. Actually, I don't recommend the average sales price number though. I use that as a random example that I pulled out of my head. Here's why I don't love tracking just average sales price. Sales price, if you're familiar with the phrases leading indicator and lagging indicator, sales price is a lagging indicator, meaning, think about it. The homes that are selling today, the homes that are closed today, not just went pending, but the homes that closed today went under contract 30, 45 days ago. And if it's a new build, they went under contract 6 months ago. Okay. Maybe even a year ago, depending on how the builders are in your area and what the builder is. I've got one new build that's been under contract for a year and a half now. And so the price that those homes are closing at is not really indicative of what the market is doing today. It's okay to track average sales prices, but just know that it's not going to be the most up-to-date indicator of what the market is doing right now. But you don't necessarily need to track active, pending, and closed and the month supply of inventory. I personally love tracking that. I think it's just an amazing indicator. I get to see exactly where we're going. But choose what you want to track and track it on a daily basis. And I know what you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, it would take so long. It doesn't take me that long at all to look this information up. Watch, I'll just show you exactly right now what I do every single morning. It takes me about 30 seconds. I first click active, 10,201, and I write that down. Okay. Then I change to, when I say pendings, I'm looking at UCBs, CCBSs, and pendings, 10,122. Remember how I mentioned about 5 minutes ago that the number of actives was going to be higher than the number of pendings today? Poof, it's already 100 higher. Okay. And then I go to closed, select date ranges, and I want it to have closed in the past 30 days, 8,688. And boom, that's it. I'm done. How long did that really take me? 15 seconds? And that's because I was explaining it to you. I probably would have had it done in 10 seconds if I didn't have to talk at the same time. All righty. So it doesn't take long. It's not this huge time commitment. And how do you remember? So I actually send myself an email that says, armless stats. And my email, you should know, I keep my email very organized. My email gets down to 0 every day. I'm an inbox 0 kind of guy. I don't like having a bunch of emails in my inbox, and my inbox works as my to-do list. If I need to do something, I email myself that says, don't forget to, just this morning while I was driving to the office, a client who just closed on their house, and I was thinking, I need to turn off their alert for new listings. So but I was driving and I didn't want to get into my CRM and do that. It was too hard, but I was at a stoplight. So I sent myself an email. It says, turn off their alert. And then when I got to the office, I had that email sitting in my inbox and I turned it off. So I have this email that I send to myself that says armless stats, and I just snooze it. So I do it and then I snooze it for the next day. And I don't know if you guys are all familiar with snoozing emails in Gmail, if you're using Gmail, but it's really, really easy. You just click this little snooze button right here and just snooze it till tomorrow. Boom. Now that email will pop back up in my inbox tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. All right. So regularly study the market. And one thing I think you ought to be prepared to answer. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I'm not in presentation mode. One question that I think that you should be prepared to answer is, would you personally invest in real estate right now and why? Right? I mean, do you believe in the product you're selling or not? And so when people, not necessarily just as an investment property, right? But maybe it was more of a speculative move. Like if you wanted to move, but you didn't need to, would you consider right now a good time to do it or not? And can you accurately articulate that? So here's what I would say. If someone asked, if someone was asking me, well, I kind of want to invest, but I'm not totally sure. I want to put my money to use, but I'm not sure if this is the best time to invest in real estate. Seems like the market's really slowing down, and I don't know, home values might crash. Maybe I should wait to buy a house a year from now and be able to get a way better deal, right? So how would you respond to that? So what I would say is, well, number one, the month supply of inventory number that I track is only at a 1.16 right now. That's what it was as of this morning. It might be 1.18 right now. And to reach a balanced market, we need somewhere around a 4 to 5 month supply of inventory. Okay, so inventory is still ridiculously low. It feels like it's way slow because we're used to absolute Armageddon of a market, right? Like we're used to just if this house didn't have 17 offers the first 3 hours since it was listed, then it must be trashed, right? It must not be a good buy, right? We're so used to this like bloodbath that our psychology regarding what a normal market is has changed. But typically, a balanced market would have a 4 or 5 month supply, and a buyer's market would need to have a 6 to 7 month or higher supply. So we are nowhere close to those numbers. So very, very unlikely that home values are going to fall anytime soon, just purely based on a supply and demand standpoint. But another factor is if home prices were to fall slightly, which I don't believe they will, if they were to fall slightly, the only thing, in my opinion, that could cause that to happen is a continued dramatic rise in interest rates. Okay. As long as interest rates stay in this kind of 5.25, 5.5-ish range, right? Then I think we'll really see the market level off. If interest rates go up to 7%, okay, yeah, we might see a dip in the market, but does that really help you? If you're looking to invest in real estate and you're using a loan, unless you're paying cash, if you're looking to invest in real estate or buy a house and you plan on getting a loan and home price, sure, you can wait a year and home prices have dropped 5%, but you're going to pay a 7% interest rate. Might as well just buy it now at 5.25. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on the preparation. All right. So number 2, you're going to plan your show. So first of all, in my show, I always lead with the same thing that I lead with on every show, and that's the month supply of inventory. So I always talk about what is the month supply of inventory as of right now. And then I choose some, and again, you don't need to do month supply of inventory. There is a downside to month supply of inventory, and that is, I think it's hard for the public to understand what that means. Okay, so you could choose a different metric that you might want to show. Maybe you're just going to share how many active listings there are right now compared to how many active listings there were a month ago and a year ago, right? It doesn't matter. Choose whatever it is you want to share. And lead with that. And then I always find at least 1 or 2 other compelling things that I want to share in each episode. That way, it's not each episode has a little bit of uniqueness to it. So for example, I don't know, I've done a ton of different things. Like once I did how much have average prices? I took most of the suburbs around the Phoenix metro area, and I looked at what the home prices were at that time compared to what they were a year ago. And then I showed you which suburb is the hottest, which areas we're seeing the greatest price appreciation compared to which areas we're seeing the lowest price appreciation. And then I've done one on which suburbs had the best sales to rent prices, like where can you get the best cash flow basically in the Phoenix area, comparing, where do you get the most bang for your buck? Which area has the best average rent price compared to the lowest average sales price? I've done, I don't know, just tons of little things like that where I do a lot of times where I'm talking about interest rates, and I'll pull up one of my favorite resources to share is Freddie Mac publishes this website that shows you a graph of what interest rates are, and they update it every Thursday. So you can see this was updated yesterday, June 2nd. And they've got average rates for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 5.09%. And this, when you just look at, when I'm sharing this, I don't like to show this 1-year view because that looks terrifying, right? But, if you switch it to a 10-year view, that still looks terrifying. But switch it to an all-time view, and suddenly it doesn't look scary at all. It looks like it's a smoking good deal. But either way, this is a really great resource, and I talk about this a lot in my shows and what kind of impact I think that is going to have on the market. Oftentimes I'll just talk about what average prices have done, average prices, how much they have increased over the past year, over the past 2 years. I did one on how much rent prices have increased over the previous. I love showing people how much rent prices have increased over like a 10-year period. So I would show, okay, here's what average prices are for rent right now. Here's what they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years, all the way to 10 years. And I show them, 10 years ago, the average rental in the Phoenix metro area was like $1,100 a month. And today it's closer to $2,000 a month. So, and then sometimes I'm like, so imagine if you bought that house 10 years ago, right? And you would have this much equity versus if you rented that house, you wouldn't have any equity and you'd now be paying $2,000 a month for the exact same house. So it's just find some sort of compelling thing that you can share. And we're going to practice here in a little bit. We're going to practice going through a couple of examples just to get your brain churning on some fun or interesting things that you could look up and share in your show.
Did you see Janice's question?
No.
I've heard that 6 to 7 months is a balanced market. How do we know for our market?
Yeah, I mean, I've always heard the number of six-ish a month. Well, I've heard like 5-ish is balanced, and then 6 or greater is a buyer's market. Sorry, I should repeat the question because probably everybody didn't hear. Somebody asked, how do you know? When we talk about that month supply of inventory number, how do you know what is going to be a balanced market and what is going to be a seller's market, the versus a buyer's market. The best thing to do would be to go. I don't know how old your MLS is and how far back you can look at historical data, but in Phoenix, our particular MLS has been around since about 2000. So we can go back to about 2000 and get pretty accurate sales data. So when was the last time home prices were falling, right? And how much inventory, what was the month supply of inventory in 2009, right? That was the last time that we saw a significant drop in home values. Not even that's pretty much the last time we saw a drop in home values was 2009. So you could go back and look at 2009 and see what was the month supply of inventory in 2009. And then what was it when last time home values were flat? You know, when was the last market where home values really weren't falling or rising? They were relatively level. I think the last time the Phoenix market saw level home values was like 2002, right? Ever since then, it's either been skyrocketing or plummeting. But that would be the best way, is to figure out what the month supply of inventory was historically, and, you know, determine like, yeah, last time home values fell, there was a 10 in the Phoenix market. There was, you know, 8, 9, 10 month supply of inventory. And then by the time it started to normalize in 2010, you know, suddenly we were getting down to, you know, about a 5-month supply. And then once it got below that, they've been going up ever since. December of 2010 was the last, it was the official bottom. Okay, awesome. All right, so now let's discuss the mechanics of your show. So first of all, you've got to determine what is the medium that you're going to use to share the data. Are you going to do a Facebook Live? Are you going to do StreamYard? Are you going to do like stories? I don't recommend a flyer, you know, where you just put all the stats onto a document and you share that. And here's why I don't recommend a flyer. Number one, everything is video based, right? Everyone wants to be able to watch a video. But number two, I feel like in the Phoenix area in any way, pretty much every single title company creates a flyer and gives it to their agents branded, and they share it. So there's just not enough value. It's too boring and standard, and there's nothing unique. There's nothing hyper local. There's no personality, and it's kind of boring. I'm not saying that you don't need to share those flyers, but your show shouldn't just be a flyer.
There's just no interpretation.
And there's no interpretation. People don't just want to know the data. The data means nothing to them. They want to know, what does that mean to me? Here's one that I like to share. You know, so I might share something like, hey, the average home price in the Phoenix area has increased by whatever it is, 20% over the past year. Well, who cares? I don't really know how to interpret that. Okay, well, let's assume that you own the median priced home, which is roughly a $500,000 house. Then that means in the past year, you have gained roughly $100,000 in equity. Okay, now I'm helping someone understand what that means. And if you're a renter and you didn't buy a year ago, last time your lease was up, you've lost $100,000 worth of net worth, right? So being able to help people understand what that really means to them is super important. And then, you know, determine how can you redistribute the information that you're going to create. So for example, we talked about how we posted on Instagram and on YouTube. We also did, actually where we get the most views is emailing it to our database. We use MailChimp. We create a cool email that goes out to our database with like a very brief written summary of what the market update is and the actual video embedded into the email. And we email that out, and we get a lot of engagement and views from that email. I think the most important thing with all things real estate, not just regarding your market update, is that you really need to be consistent. Even if you aren't getting any views or you don't feel like anyone is watching it. It's kind of like how if you're a newer agent and you tried to call expireds one time and didn't get any business from it, so you decided it doesn't work. Well, it works. There's lots of agents who get a lot of business calling expireds. You just suck at it. You don't have enough experience to have figured out how to get past people's automatic no's, and you haven't figured out how to make it a little bit more interesting, and you haven't figured out how to repurpose the content. You haven't figured out how to make it better. So just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. If anything, you know what I kind of said to myself early on when I didn't feel like I was getting any views and I sort of felt like it was a waste of time? it was making me better. So even if nobody else ever watched it, I learned some very interesting things as I was gathering the data and as I was preparing for my show. And maybe some of what I was learning with that data gave me the confidence to buy more investment properties, right? And those investment properties have made me, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and because of what the market has done recently. And I was extremely confident when I was buying those, even through COVID, when a lot of other people were like, I don't know about the market. I was like, I know the market is going to skyrocket. There's nothing for sale. And so we bought several properties right in the middle of COVID, and the rest is history, of course, right? And maybe I wouldn't have had that same level of confidence if I wasn't doing this show with a regular basis. So even if you never get anything from your show, just think about how is it making you better. And when someone asks you, how's the market, how much more confident are you going to be? How much more prepared are you going to be to have that conversation with people? So even if your actual show doesn't get any views and doesn't get any engagement, you don't get any leads or referrals from it, and you don't close any business from it, you're making yourself a better agent and a better person by doing it.
I have a question.
Yes.
How much time would you say is appropriate to prepare for the show? And then how long should the show, how long, on the ones that you do get consistent views, how long are those?
Yeah, most of my shows are roughly 10. The question was how long do I spend preparing, or how much do I think is an appropriate time to prepare? And number two, how long are my shows? I think ideally the show should be under 5 minutes ish. I'm not very good at that. Most of my shows are 8 or 9 minutes long. But I think that's too long. I don't see a lot, unless you're very seriously interested in buying or selling, or you're my mom, right? You might not be on board with doing. No, but my dad does. Yeah, my dad watches them almost every week, and he doesn't even live in Phoenix. He lives in Denver. So that's what's funny. Here's what's really cool about that. He reached out to me on multiple occasions, like, man, I just love your show so much. He's obviously a little more analytical like I am as well. And he's getting ready to retire and sell their house in about a year. And I really want to find an agent in our market that does something like what you do, so I can keep an eye on the market between now and a year from now when I sell, and so that I feel like I'm working with an agent who really knows the market. And that was really important. And it kind of created a referral opportunity for me to be able to help my dad connect with a good agent out there. So, all right. So we're gonna. Oh, and I'm sorry. The other part of the question was prep time. How much time do I spend preparing? I spend maybe 15 or 20 minutes preparing for most episodes. I have done a few that are a little bit more complex that I maybe spent a little bit more time on. But most of the time I'm spending about 15 minutes.
I think once you get a rhythm,
Yeah.
you're probably the first few are gonna take a little bit longer.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
as you get that rhythm going, it's not as long as you think.
Absolutely. All right. So I thought what would be most helpful is if we just ran through some scenarios so that you guys could see exactly how to collect the data. Maybe you already know how to, but maybe you're feeling uncomfortable and unsure about how would you go about collecting this, specific type of interesting data that you could share in your show. All right. So I've got a couple scenarios, and we're going to go through and we're going to do them together. So scenario number one, how much has the average sales price for homes with pools increased year over year? I don't know. Just have pool homes increased more than non-pool homes? I have a theory, but let's treat this like a scientific experiment. I hadn't planned this. This is a spur of the moment Merrill thing. I have a hypothesis. Okay. My hypothesis is that it is so expensive to build a pool right now, and it takes at least a year. My hypothesis is that pools have become more valuable over the past year, and that pool homes have maybe increased slightly more than non-pool homes in value because the desirability of that pool has become greater, especially throughout COVID as people were staying home more and yada, yada, yada. I don't know who agrees or disagrees with my hypothesis.
I agree.
Okay, no one wants to disagree with me. I could be totally wrong. I have not ran this numbers yet. We're doing this live, so I could be totally wrong, but we're going to test it. So, how much has the average price for homes with pools increased over the past year? What about the year before that? And what is the percentage of change? So, first thing I'm going to do is I am going to create a Google Sheet. All right, blank Google Sheet here, and I'm going to say let's see, we're going to say average price, pool in 22, pool 21, pool 20. Okay, and then we'll say no pool 22, no pool 21. Those are the years, by the way. Okay, so those numbers are the year. All right, and let's see what our average prices were. Now, I don't want to look at the entire year, especially when you're looking at like 2021. You're looking at such a long. So we'll look at like we'll do March through June or something like that. March 1st through
Yeah, I think that's
March
about-
1st through the end of May. That'll be so we're looking at March, April, and May. That'll be like our 3-month period. Okay, so now we're going to go to the MLS and we'll just start a new search. Now, again, I know some of you who are on here not from Phoenix, you have a different MLS. I know that most other MLSs use Flex, this software. So, but either way, I'm guessing that you can aggregate very similar data. All right. So I'm going to say that I want to look at closed listings, and I'm going to select a date range. So these little black arrows, you can click on those. Let me zoom on this to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. All right, so these little black arrows right here, you can look back a certain number of days, or you can click it and turn it into a specific date range. So I'm going to do March 1st of 2022 through May 31st of 2022. I specifically want single family homes with pools. So we're going to say actually, let's just say no pool. So it's going to include all types of pools. All right. And there are 6,975 homes with some kind of a pool that have sold in our MLS in the past 3 months. All right. Now, when you click to view these results, it'll take a minute to load because that's obviously a very large sample size. And then you just click on CMA up here and you say statistical buyers CMA. And it is going to spit out an average sales price of $942,179. Now, every once in a while, when I look at this data, I might decide that there is an outlier or two that we might want to consider removing. And you can do that. I just noticed that there was a $22 million house that sold and a $75,000 house that sold. So let's just add in here that we want to look at the sold price, and let's say that the minimum price has to be 100,000, and let's say that the maximum price is 10 million. Okay, just I don't want some $22 million sale totally skewing our average. I doubt it skewed it that much with a sample size of 7,000 homes, but let's just see how much it changed, or if it changed at all. It went down a little bit. So our average sales price, 929,707. We still had a house that sold for 9.9 million, but all right. So I'm just going to copy that number and I'm going to paste it into my average price for 2022. Okay. Now I'll go back to my MLS. I'll close this one, and then I'm going to edit my search, and I'm going to change the year to 2021. And the same thing, CMA, statistical buyer CMA. Uh-oh, did I mess up? No, there we go. Just it was being slow. And our average price at that time was $801,555. So come in here, we'll enter that. And then we'll do it one more time for 2020. Search 2020. Am I boring you guys out of your minds, or do you find this interesting? Okay. All right, good deal. I find it fascinating. I can't wait to find the answer.
There's a lot of things I find fascinating. I'm not sure if this is one of them. I do find it interesting.
Okay, look at that. So the average price for a home with a pool in 2020 was $545,770. Average price in 2022, $929,707. That is a gain of almost 400. I mean, I know the market's hot, but $400,000. I think my hypothesis is going to be true. But now let's check the no pools. So now we'll go back to edit the search. We'll leave our date range for 2020, but now I'm going to say that I want it to be no pool. Obviously, there's going to be more no pool homes that has sold. And same thing, we'll do our statistical CMA. So this is for 2020. Oh, wow. That gap is more dramatic than I expected. Look at this. The average price for a home without a pool in 2020 was $321, and with a pool was $545. I mean, obviously a pool is not worth $200,000, but I think there's just a tendency that luxury homes, maybe our data set is flawed. And sometimes I do this stuff and I'm like, well, you know what, that's not really a fair way of looking at it, because luxury homes in the Phoenix area, if your home's over $2 million, if it doesn't have a pool, good luck. Like everything has a pool. So it's creating but that's okay. We're not necessarily looking at homes with pools versus no pools. What our hypothesis is have homes with pools gone up more than homes without pools. So we can still test it. We're still good. But sometimes you think of, oh, well, you know what? That's not really a fair way of looking at it, because luxury homes always have pools and non-luxury homes almost never have pools. So of course your average is going to be lower for non-pool homes.
You can always take it, if you take a median price and go 20% above and 20% below.
Yeah, you could oftentimes I'll say, you know what, I don't want to look at super luxury because I don't sell super luxury, and I don't want to look at super low end. Sometimes I'll say I only want to look at homes between 300 and 800,000, for example. So you can narrow your price range, but for now I'm just keeping it really broad because we might have people watching this who do super luxury. So I want to just show you how you can look at this data and just give you some ideas. This is not intended for you to go out and do this exact show on pools. The intention of this was to inspire you and show you how exactly you can look up the data. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Now we're going to change this to look at 2021. View our results. Look at a statistical CMA. And the average sales price was $409,664. Look, I'm obviously already noticing. So look at this. No pool homes only went up by, what is that? 90,000 versus pool homes went up 256,000. But that's okay. Let's finish our experiment here and close this. I have too many windows open, but I need them. I can't close a lot of these windows because we're in the middle of writing a few offers for people and I need to keep all that stuff open. So now we'll look at 2020. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 2022. My bad. 2022. Screwed that up. And our average sales price in 2022 was $505,908. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see which one saw the greatest increase between 2020 and 2022. So the way that you calculate that, you enter a formula and you say, I want to see B5. So right now I'm looking at the no pool homes minus B7. I'm sorry, that needs to be in parentheses, which is 184,009 divided by B7. That's how you calculate percentage change. And then just take that field, turn it into a percentage, and non-pool homes from 2020 to 2022 increased by 57.16%. I can already tell by eyeballing it that the pool homes did increase more. So, but let's figure out our formula. So we've got, and that's what's another really amazing feature of Google Sheets. You start entering the equation and it says, you know what, we think this is what you want. And it just so happens that's exactly what I want. And turn that into a percentage and poof. Pool homes since 2020 have increased by 70.3%. Non-pool homes have only increased by 57.16%. So one could argue that the value of a pool has gone up more over the past 2-3 years. One could also argue that as the market has started to slow down, The luxury market is continuing as strong as ever so far. They're like, we don't care about interest rates. We're buying this $10 million house cash.
Yeah.
So they haven't seen the slowdown that the lower end has seen. So it could also be that the price range that we're looking at, it favors luxury. And maybe if you narrowed it down and said, I only want to look at homes under $1 million, you would end up with a slightly different data set. But I'm willing to bet that either way, even if you looked at homes under $1 million, you would still see a greater increase in value of homes with pools. But this would be a really fascinating thing to share in a show, right? I'm getting some blank stares. I'm just kidding. All right. Did anybody have?
I'm married a nerd.
Oops, sorry. I need to stop my screen share on that. Did anybody have any questions on that? No, I don't see any questions. Well, Christy, you'll monitor the questions and let me know if there's any questions, right?
Yes.
All right. Let's do a new one. Is the days on this one? I'm so curious about the answer on this one. All right. Is the days on market? How am I doing on time? Do we have time for another one? Oh, holy cow! It's 1 o'clock. Where did the time go? This was so fun. I thought I was going to get through like 7 examples.
Your technical difficulties took your time.
The technical difficulties at the beginning took away 5 or 10 minutes, so that's a bummer. All right, we're going to do this one really fast then. Is the days on market, because sometimes people are like 55 plus communities are like, well, we don't want to sell in the middle of summer because there's no snowbirds here. So the theory, again, hypothesis here is the days on market in a 55 plus community truly longer in the summer than it is in the winter? What do you guys think? What's the hypothesis? Yes. Okay, but is it significant? I guess is the question, right?
I would say.
So we'll delete all of that data and we'll say,
I think it's higher.
We'll say 55 plus days on market and we'll do June through August. And then let's compare it to January through May. No, April.
No, I think you need to do October through January.
I think most snowbirds tend to come after Christmas.
You think?
Well, let's look at both. We'll do October through
December.
Let's do October through December, and then we will do January through April. Okay. And now same thing. We're just going to go in here. We're going to do a new search. And let's also let's just look at single family homes, not at some 55 plus communities are manufactured homes on leased land, and I don't want to skew our data set with that. So we're just going to look at single family homes. And I apologize if you're in an area that doesn't tend to have 55 plus communities, you might find this search useless, but just keep in mind, like, this is just inspiration. I'm not saying you need to go out and do this exact thing. All right. So first thing we're going to look at is October 10/1/2021 through December 12/31/2021. So there were 1,693 55 plus community homes. That's let's take out our $30,000 outlier here, and let's just look at stuff over $100,000. Okay. All right, and then we'll do our statistical CMA. And the average days on market was, and I never know whether I want to go with cumulative or agent. I think I want to go with cumulative because the coming soon thing counts the agent days. The cumulative is only counting actual active. So we're going to go 30 on that. So throw October through December was 30 days. Okay, and then we will look at June. Close this one. Close this one. So we'll go June 1st through August, right? There's 31 days in August, right? Okay, so June through August, 1,571. And we had average days on market of 26.
Wow.
So far we are surprised by our hypothesis. And then we'll go January through April. Now, I am noticing significantly more volumes.
Yes.
Holy cow, yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, did I do that right?
Did you want-
January, yeah, I did that right. The other month ranges had like what, 1,700.
Yeah.
This
Well,
spring
there's
there's
a 4 month versus
2,700.
3.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I'm not comparing equal time ranges. And the average days on market was 29 days. Okay. So the reality is, honestly, there's not a big difference, really. Homes now, you might need to go back farther. Maybe the market has just been so dang hot that it hasn't mattered. The market last summer was so insane that it wasn't a fair comparison. Maybe if you went back and looked at 2021 or 2018, maybe you would find a different data. But if I was going to meet, let's say I was meeting with a person in a 55 plus community and they're like, we want to sell, but we're just really worried that this isn't a good time of year to put the home on the market. I would say to them, you know what? Last summer actually saw the lowest days on market on average for homes in 55 plus communities out of the whole year. So homes were actually selling faster in the summer last year.
But there was more competition.
No, less competition because fewer people choose to put their home on the market at that time. Everyone else is waiting for the fall and the spring. You've got an advantage. There's nothing else available right now. So, just interesting ways of looking at the data and sharing it with people. So anyway, we're out of time. I had several more examples. Maybe you could consider, a homework assignment. Like the next one that I was going to do was, which has seen greater appreciation over the past year? Homes under 500,000 or homes over $1 million? I'm really curious to know what that number is. Which price range saw a bigger increase in average price? Under 500,000 or over $1 million? Right. Another example was, what is the difference in the average sales price between Chandler, Gilbert, and Queen Creek? And then how much have average rent prices for single family homes risen over the past 5 years? Has one part of the valley seen a greater increase in rent prices than other parts of the valley? So anyway, those are just some ideas, some inspiration of things that you could share or research or look up. But you're gonna look that stuff up, and you're gonna feel so much smarter about these types of situations. So anyway, I hope you guys found this information helpful. I hope I've inspired you. I hope you're going to go out there and do a show of your own. And please send it to me when you do. I can't wait to check it out. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. And I'm always happy to do anything I can to help. Thank you all and have a great day.